we pulled off a couple days ago, telling truth. I don't even want to call it power, telling truth in the face of lies. So thank you to everyone who's been standing up with us all together on that. And I can't wait to read your novels, Anissa. So my name is Cynthia, and I'm the policy coordinator for the Climate Justice Alliance, which is an organization that currently links 68 member organizations across the U.S. and Puerto Rico. And we are an intergenerational organization. Our constituencies are rooted in indigenous, African American, Latino, and Asian Pacific Islander and poor white communities all across the country, folks that are on the front lines of the climate crisis. Our organization shared histories of colonialism and racial and economic oppression, along with rich histories of organizing for environmental, economic, and social justice. We believe as CJA that in order to effectively confront the climate crisis, we must transition our priorities from global systems of production and consumption that are energy intensive and fossil fuel dependent to more localized systems that are sustainable, resilient, and regenerative. But to do this, this transition must be just. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the organizations that we're here with, and then talk about praxis among some of our groups. We're here at the COP24 as part of the It Takes Roots delegation, which is composed of 4 big networks: Climate Justice Alliance, the Indigenous Environmental Network, Grassroots of Global Justice, and Right to the City, which is a housing group. We all know that we're in a very difficult moment all over the world. In the United States, where we're based, we're seeing the rise of the right, as is happening everywhere. People are experiencing an increase in violence, the violence of misogyny, the expressions of toxic masculinity that are hurting our people. This includes a big increase in state violence manifesting as police violence. One of our militant organizers, an environmental justice leader based in Detroit with the East Michigan Environmental Action Council, Siwati Salamara, was unjustly imprisoned for over a year. She gave birth in prison. She just came out and her case is still pending. And this kind of thing is happening all over the country, and it's having a direct effect on us. She's back with her family now, and we're hoping for justice, but her story stands out, but it's certainly not the only one. Much of the feminist work and feminist organizing in our big network is carried out by Grassroots Global Justice, which does feminist organizing with grassroots leaders of color, holds feminist organizing schools, and that work is going to be increasing over the next year as we confront the current situation. So how are we doing our work on the ground? In order to bring about this just transition, we're working in a lot of areas that we know must change. 2 that I want to talk about today are food sovereignty and energy democracy. So I thought I would just mention some of the groups, some of the 68 groups that are linked with us, whose work crosses as part of the nexus of food sovereignty and energy democracy, which we're trying to build out. So I thought I'd talk about the Black Dirt Farm Collective, which has members pretty much coming from the South and up into the Detroit area. And their work is very much based on food sovereignty, teaching people how to farm, and their philosophy is that we are returning farmers, that the people were farmers, and that this was taken away from them for a couple of generations, and now they're back. And so working with them has actually been a really great experience, because we have a member group in Puerto Rico, which is called Organización Boricuá de Agricultura Ecológica, right? Organization Boricuá, which is an agroecology organization that links 135 organic farmers or farmers that are in transition that are small or medium sized. So in the face of the hurricane that took place there, they are leading in what we call just recovery. Because when you have that type of tragedy, of course a lot of climate capitalists move in and start to try to take over the situation in the vacuum that is created.
So Organización Boricuá is working to seek energy democracy and find a way to develop small grid solar on a number of areas. The place was devastated in terms of being able to produce food. The people who were farming in a more sustainable and organic way had, in some ways, fewer losses than people doing conventional agriculture. So Black Dirt Farm Collective and a number of others of our members all went to Puerto Rico in brigades and helped the farmers there. So that was a very powerful experience as we began to help farmers get their fields cleaned up so that they could plant and not miss the planting season. And that was one place where we began to, could really feel the solidarity of our network and of our movement, and trying to take a good hard look at how to influence what that recovery is going to look like. It's not easy to do, but we're working on that. Also in terms of agriculture and women-led sustainable projects, where there's a cluster of groups in the Bay Area and the East Bay and near San Francisco, women-led organizations. I can think of Urban Tilth, Poder. There are others that are teaching folks also how to recover food sovereignty. And they're actually farming and growing, in some places teaching medicinal practices, how to grow herbs, and others are producing food, all in the shadow of these oil refineries that have poisoned people's lives, damaged their health. One of them exploded a few years ago and sent 15,000 people to the hospital. And in the shadow of those refineries, they're not only fighting for energy democracy and to get beyond that, but protecting the communities by developing skills that people need to live better. So that is like a couple examples of practices that we look to, and when we get the chance, we visit those places and support each other. I also wanted to talk about some of the organizations that are women-led that are confronting energy laws very specifically. The Little Village Environmental Justice Organization in Chicago was able to influence a law that they got there, which is actually headed toward a cleaner energy law, but they made it, worked very hard to make the law that would support and sustain the low-income environmental justice communities that many of us come from. So they not only were able to be active in the closing down of 2 coal-fired power plants, and they're engaged in the struggle to get those into the hands of people for good projects, but they've taken the law and been able to use that to develop solar panels, a school teaching people how to install and even build solar panels, which is directed at returning people who are leaving prison and youth that aged out of the foster care system. So that is like a very, I hear people cite the work of them sometimes without naming them, but LVEJO is the one that are leading that, and they are our members. The Asia Pacific Environmental Network, also in the San Francisco area, is doing something similar. They're taking laws that make it possible to get solar energy that usually leave out marginalized communities for a bunch of reasons, and are making that solar technologies available to low-income communities and low-income families. And finally, I want to mention our members, the Black-Mesa Water Coalition in Navajo country, who are doing terrific economic justice and environmental justice work, not only developing a solar energy project in the face of 2 coal-fired power plants that are poisoning those communities, but they've also got economic justice projects that are both bringing back traditional agriculture and also helping the wool industry. And they've actually been able to bring value added to the way they're managing their wool business and increase the income. Even in a few years, we're starting to hear that that's been successful. So I just wanted to end on that note, and again, it's kind of tough times in some ways, and yet in some ways we've never been stronger because of who our people are and what we're doing. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for sharing your work on energy democracy and biodiversity and local community empowerment. We're so grateful to have the Grassroots delegation here with us at this COP and work with you in partnership, so thank you so much. And now, without further ado,